Hi, my name is Marcus. I would like to talk about Eldiron, my creator for classical RPGs. If you like games like the old Ultimas, Ultima Online, Dungeon Master, Eye of the Beholder, these kind of games, the RPGs of the late 80s and 90s, then you are in the right place because I am creating a creator just for that. First, I have to say sorry because I did not make a video for over 2 months now. The reason was that I was working on some new big features and I was redoing some core aspects of Eldiron. The first is the user interface you see here is the new tree widget for the project. The second is the new GPU-based rendering system for both 2D and 3D, which you can see here. And then the new mesh editing aspect of Eldiron for 3D. And yeah, about these three things I would like to talk today. I will talk less about 2D because nothing really has changed. And if you're interested in 2D games like Ultima 4, 5, have a look at the old videos I did. Basically, they are the same except the new UI system. So today I will talk about the UI, about GPU rendering, and about mesh editing. Okay, let's talk a bit about the new user interface system. In the past, I had many tools here on the left, which mapped to different aspects of the game over here. But the problem was that some tools, they mapped to different content. And you needed to know which tool applied to what. And it was not so intuitive, I think. So that's why in this version, I made this new tree widget here on the right, which lists every editable aspect of a project. And when you click on something, like here's a visual scripting interface item, then you get the doc editor for especially that content. Or here's the Python code, the attribute here of the player. And that makes it easy to edit in a more intuitive way the content of the game, I think. What is also new for this doc widget here is that everything here, it all now gets driven by the new action system. So the yellow items here, they relate to the dock, which is this area. So here the tiles, the tile system. The red items, they are associated with the editor, what you can do in the editor at this moment. And the blue items are the camera controls. And you can, for example, you want to switch to the 2D camera, you can apply the 2D action. But of course, you would like to use, you should use the shortcuts for these. So the shortcuts are always listed here in the settings. So Alt Control 2 for the 2D camera, 3 for the overhead camera, 4 for the ISO camera, first person camera here on 5. And all these actions, they are, of course, dependent on what you currently have in the UI and what you selected. For example, when I enable here the toggle editing geometry with Control T, then I see the current geometry and can select parts of it. So if I, with the surface sector tool here, I select a surface. In 2D, I call it a sector. So here it would be this sector here, or but in 3D, I call it a surface because it's not, it's the sector terminology was because of a Doom style editor, which was called sectors. But a surface here is, it's more complicated. I will explain what we can do with extrusions and hole creation and passages and doors and gates later on. But anyway, if you select something here in the 3D view, we can instantly see here the what is possible on this selection here with this surface. If we select the line depth, then we see the line depth specific actions and so on. Now, another interesting thing is that you can also now maximize the dock window. And this has some cool possibilities. For example, now when we maximize here the tile editor, the tile picker, we actually get a tile editor. And so we can now edit tiles directly inside Eldiron, which makes it very easy and intuitive to create new tiles, edit tiles, because you can see the results directly on the map. For example, I mean, here you see on the tile picker, we can copy, we can duplicate the tile, we can maximize the UI, edit tile data, and we see the settings always in this area here. But remember that you always have to click apply, otherwise it will not happen. Create a new tile. So these tiles, actually, they are from a new tile set called the Eldiron 3D tile set, which is $15 on the, I mean, they are a small part of that tile set. They are $15 on the Patreon page. And if you buy that tiles set, you support the Eldiron project. And of course, you can also become a Patreon member. And then when you are a Dragon Slayer member, you get the tile sets for free. I mean, for free, you pay for it anyway. But this is for people who want to buy a tile set or want to be a member. Okay, which is actually, I think, is a good way to support Eldiron in the effort, because you get something back in return, like a nice tile set. And so I will, over time, create new tile sets also for screens and similar things. Okay, now back to the tile editor. For example, if we maximize here this tile which we use for the wall here, we can just, let's say, paint a little bit of a green thing into here. And if we close it, you can instantly see the result here on the tiles. And the undo redo system is specific to the current selected tile. So each tile has its own undo stack. So if we go into the tile editor again, we can undo it. And then we have the old tile back. And I think it's a good way to quickly try out tile ideas. And yeah, for me, I'm not a pixel artist. I like to mess around with it, but I'm not really an artist in the artist sense. But this makes it easier for me to play around and find nice tiles, because you instantly see the feedback on the map. Whereas it's a little bit abstract when you have to do it in a different application, because then you have to really think how to use it. And here I can just go in and create a new wall tile, see the result, and can play along with it until it looks good on the map. Okay, what else? I mean, you see this is only 16 by 16 here, these tiles, but the because of the new GPU rendering we will talk later about, this really looks good. It has bump mapping. You can see here on the structure with bump mapping and material settings. Actually, you get a very yeah, it nearly looks like a hand-drawn isometric tile set, which would be for me, if I would have to do it myself, very difficult to do. But this, with the 3D editing together with the tile painting, is quite easy. Not easy, but much easier, at least for me. Okay, that was it about the new UI system. Let's talk a bit about the new 3D rendering system. About the software rendering I used before, I have to say I was wrong, because I thought it would be fun if you recreate games similar to the 80s and 90s to use a software renderer like they had back then, like they used back then. And it was a lot of fun implementing it all. But I mean, nowadays everybody has a GPU, and why would you run your system at 80% CPU utilization when you could also do it with 20 or 10%, just because you want to have a software renderer when everybody has a GPU anyway. So that was especially when I tried out the hideout example on my iPad, and it was actually too slow to run on my old iPad. And I said, okay, it doesn't make sense. So let's do a GPU renderer and for both 2D and 3D, and it will just make it more professional and make it proper. But actually, the 2D rendering is more or less the same as the 2D as the previous software rendering, but for the 3D, I implemented it in with a ray tracer. So this is actually a scene where rays are sampled to make it look, to create the look of a old tile set kind of thing, like the old games. And for that, I have several features here. When you go to the game settings, there are lots of features you can play around with in the rendering area, in the rendering section. And for example, here, when you look at the recess, this currently it uses 2 samples for the to calculate the ambient occlusion. So if I set it to 0, you can see now it's it gets a bit lighter because this is not, it doesn't test for occlusion anymore. Now with ambient occlusion test, only one sample is already, it gets darker here because this area is occluded. And so you can, if you change the samples, it also changes the way the scene looks. So you have a lot of possibilities to change how your scene looks. And also in the future, maybe give this to the user as a quality settings, because of course, if you use lots of samples everywhere, then it slows down the GPU and you need to have a strong GPU. So you can decide to have it what the user wants and what kind of look you want to have for your game. So even one ambient occlusion sample makes a huge difference in the look to make it look more organic. And the nice thing about tiles and tile sets is that actually, if this would be a modern, very clean scene, you would not see a noise on the tiles here. But actually, for a tile set, for a retro tile set like this, it actually gives it a bit more organic look, the noise, because it's not completely boring anymore. It gives it texture. And I actually like this look, but you can decide for yourself if you would like to have that or not. Another setting which is very, if you let's turn it off, the ambient occlusion completely, and let's go to the bump strength. So bump mapping here is how it calculates the relief of the tile and uses that for lighting. So you see here that the tiles have a bumpy look to it because of the bump mapping. If you turn it off, the whole look of the game or this scene changes. That's also again up to you if you like what kind of look you like. You can also have, before it was bump strength was 1, so it was very strong. 1 is the maximum setting, so you can also make it more subtle. So you see and we increase it, it gets bumpier and bumpier, especially here, and you can see it on the area where the light is shining. It gives it a very organic look, and I like that look. But again, this you can decide how you want your game to look. Okay, set this to 1. There I like a lot of settings here you can play around with, and the description tells you what it's about. So you have, these are the static settings for the sky color, and you can turn this to dark. If you're in a dungeon scene, you don't want to have a sky, you can just turn it off. And then you can also use a simulation. So you can select if the simulation for the night-day cycle is enabled or not. If it's enabled like this, you can see that the sun throws shadows. So you can see the shadows here through the gate on the floor. And of course, I mean, it's also fun to see how that works in first-person view. In first-person view, you can just click the mini map here to navigate the scene. And when you just click it, you move the camera position. And then you can also, when you shift click it, you move where you look at. So here's look at, now we look at the wall, we look outside, and we look forward. So this is an easy way to navigate this first-person camera. And of course, you can also decide what if the game is in first person in the game settings or not, or in isometric. I will talk about that when I do the 3D from scratch, then I'll go over all the settings. This is just an overview video here right now. Yeah, okay. So this is what I want to talk about, the 3D view. It's the new rendering. I think it's a big step forward. We have less GPU utilization. We have GPU utilization, but we have less CPU utilization for games. And this now runs also fine on embedded devices and on the web. Okay, let's talk a bit about 3D editing. I know that's something many of you are interested in. 3D editing in Eldiron is brand new, and there are a lot of things coming up, both small and big features and workflow and everything. But the foundations are here. I would like to show you how it all works. Here we are in the 2D view of we see a top-down view of the ground floor. So let's just add a new sector here. Select it with the sector tool, apply tile here to the sector. This always applies a tile to the whole thing, to the whole surface. Now you can see the geometry here, the ground geometry in the 3D camera, in the isometric view. What we can do now is select these two line depths, and we select 4 for the height, and this extrude the line depth and creates a wall. And the angle of 0, it just goes straight up. You can also rotate it around its line, ground line if needed. All right, so we see our walls here. We select them. We give them our wall tile. And that's it, we have walls. But of course, without depth, they look a little bit sorry. I mean, if you give a wall depth or not, it really depends on your camera view. I mean, if you're in a first person view and the wall does not have any holes and you don't really care if it has depth or not. But in isometric, it just gives a little more realism if you give depth, and you can do that with the extrude sector and tool or action. By default, it has a depth of 0.2. So let's apply that, and that already looks much more realistic. When we talk about tiles, I mean, here we applied a tile to the whole surface, but what we can actually do, we can just select a tile, we go to the rect tool, and we can paint tiles wherever we want on each surface. So that gives a much more realistic view, of course, because we have much more variations on the walls and on floors. I mean, this is also the tile editor is good for that you can just duplicate a tile make a small variation of it and place variations on the walls, and it gives you variety and much better look. This is a rec tool, which works in 2D and 3D like this. Okay, next step. Let's go to the, let's see the geometry. Again, we can toggle the editing geometry with Control T. And we select this wall, and then we go to the set editing surface, and this gives us a profile view of the wall. So here we can now create with the line tool some geometry, and by default that's a hole. So you can easily create windows, doors, passages on your geometry like this. And but not only that, you can also do recesses like here, like this, and doors and gates. And this is, I can show you. You select it, you go to the editing surface to see the profile view, and oops, we didn't see the. Okay, now here. And so this is all also lossless. We can just move this sector, and when you go to the camera, you just moved it to the top right. So let's editing surface. Let's go back, move it down to here. Another trick we can do is we can select the line depth here and add an arch to it. That already looks much better. It's the same thing we did here. Now let's insert a door gate. We have, when we select this profile, we have this the recess relief, and we have the gate door. Let's do a gate or gate door thing. We can just drag and drop here the tile to the gate door action, and let's not upscale it, but repeat it. Apply, and now you have a door here. And so this door is really cut into that profile. And the cool thing is later on in one of the next releases, you can connect that door to item behavior. So you have an item with visual scripting like we have in the hideout example, where you can define the door state, open, close, and it should scroll up to open, left, right, it fades out. So you can really create behavior for doorways into your scene. But this is not implemented yet. So right now the doors are static. What else? Let's create a line depth here, and let's extrude it again. You can see it. Select these vertices, and create sector, which then creates a ceiling. And then you can do the same, extrude it, and you can, if you want to get more detail to things, you can select a line and you can split it and apply. That gives you an extra vertex, and then you can, with edit, now you have to select it. With edit vertex tool, you can just change the Y position to make ceilings which have a bit more shape to it. I mean, like diagonal ceilings like we have here, for example. Okay, I mean, this is just a quick introduction, and I will make another separate video about how we do a complete little game from scratch. But I think for this, it gives you an idea how all this works. Again, this is an alpha release. It has bugs, it has missing features, but it's all slowly coming together. That's it for this video, and I would like to thank all my Patreons which helped me on this journey so far. Very much appreciated. And yeah, see you in the next video.